Again, excited for everybody to be here, and hopefully these continue to be sessions that you're enjoying, and we're trying to give you a diverse subject matter every week so you can kind of broaden our horizons during this rough time. So first of all, I just want to send out thoughts and prayers to everybody as we go through this. I know not only is it illness, there's economic, there's psychological, there's a lot of things going on in all our lives, and just take a moment to recognize that. And hopefully these sessions help us feel connected. These sessions help us run our business and also give us a sense of what's coming in the future rather than dealing with some of the dreariness of the present. So that's all part of what we're trying to accomplish here. So we appreciate you joining us, and we'll continue to bring these to you every week. Again, today we have TrueView is one of our partners on the Frame Your Future series we're doing live across the country as things open up. But as just a partner of ours in general, they approached us about joining in and offering some content, and so we're excited to have them join us this week. In a minute or two, I'll turn it over to them. A couple updates relative to Larson-Juhl. A lot of questions about where we're at operationally. Just to be clear, we have furloughed really our entire sales force. And so it's myself and 2 people in customer service, and Vanessa, who's our commercial support manager, and Molly Montebear, who manages our key accounts. That's the sales team we have and support team we have in place right now. So any emails you're sending to any rep or manager are all coming to me. If you're contacting customer service, we have 2 people there that are keeping up with those, which are coming in frequently throughout the day, but they're keeping up with those. And then Vanessa, for any of you that work with Vanessa on the contract side, she's there handling those requests. We are taking orders. So if you have orders that you want to be in the queue when we reopen, you can certainly call customer service, email customer service, or go online and use our online ordering system to put orders in, and we'll queue them up from your local branch as soon as we get operational. In terms of our decision process for going operational, obviously first and foremost, it's local and state ordinances. If there's a stay-at-home order in place, we're honoring those. We're not looking to find loopholes or figure out ways to do things, and we just think that's the right thing to do. As you know, we're a values-driven company, and one of ours is fair and all dealings, and we think honesty is connected to that. Just know that as soon as we have legal and ethical clearance to do it, we'll start opening up again. So direct you to the website. Anytime you have any questions, day or night, on our website will always be the most current updates. We just put one out there Monday, and we'll continue to update out there so you know what's going on with us. And then we'll use email as the primary communication tool. And not all of you, you've turned off the marketing emails, so sometimes it's difficult to get those. So I just encourage you, either email me, and my name is and number is on the most current update, or go on the website and just read for yourself, and that'll give you some ideas. But we will get functional as soon as we can. It'll probably be progressive. We're not going to just one day have 12 branches open, but we will be progressive and get it done as quickly as we can. So that's my update on our operations. Now to keep moving this way. Why is that doing that now? Let's see here. Where's my arrow? There it is. Got it. There. So Amy Northard will be on in just a second to talk a little bit. I'll introduce her in a second. We will do the chat feature again like we did last week, where throughout the presentation, if you have a question for Amy, go ahead and send those in. Danielle is out there waiting to take your questions, and she'll do just like last week, interject at breaking points in Amy's presentation to have you ask those questions live to Amy. We encourage that. We'll get to as many as we can, and again, we'll try to keep to a hard stop no later than 3 o'clock, and hopefully we'll keep Amy on board to about 2:45 or so, and get you guys in and out of here, but we'll answer as many as you can. And then afterwards, if there's questions we didn't get answered, we'll send those to Amy after the fact, and we'll be able to get some more answers out to all of you that way. I ask you again, since we don't have a registration for this, to make it easy to get in, I simply ask you to chat Danielle your email address, so we have a list of those ready to go for this session. That'll help us communicate with you as we go through. And as always, we'll have a little URL for you. This link right here will send you to a spot where you can give us feedback. Again, let us know how we're doing. Let us know what other content you'd like to hear about. There's some questions out there that some places for you to give us feedback out there. So use that URL. Danielle will also chat it out, so it's something you can save and click on right away. So that's what's going on there. So with that, the chat feature again, we'll just keep doing this every week. That's how you get to chat if you're doing it on a desktop. And if you're on your phone, you have the participant button there that'll get you into the chat feature. And all of you are enabled to chat with Danielle, who's the host and moderator for this behind the scenes there. So feel free to let her know what's on your mind. And I think that's about it. Again, you're all muted, and Danielle will unmute you as you have questions. And there it is. And then we'll have questions. If you have questions just in general, we also have that ljmarketing@larsonjuhl.com. Apparently there's a little glitch in that last week. We forgot a J or something. So that is the correct email address to get straight to Danielle. And we can handle any questions and feedback that way as well. And again, she'll chat that out to you, so you have that as well. All right. With that, I want to get to the meat of the presentation, and that's certainly not me. You know, again, TrueView approached us when they saw when we started doing these and wanted to participate. And you know, they saw the need. You know, they have their own initiative going with the TrueView support out there, and this is another way they can do that. So they asked to participate, and they've asked Amy Northard to join us. Amy's a CPA. I told her earlier she's got the perfect kind of company logo for this. Accounting for Creatives is her company name, and I think that fits this group quite nicely. She specializes in small business owners, and she tries to take some stress out of your life. You know, as most CPAs do, they feel like they can remove some of the burdens for you all and give you time to focus on where your passions are, and she follows her passion, and certainly that's her mantra here. She also teaches small business financial basics. She has an online course called Be Your Own CFO. A lot of you do that anyway, but there might be some great learning out there for you in that. So know that she has that as well. And again, I want to thank TrueView. We work with Dot, who's their director of marketing, and Owen, who's our rep for Larson-Juhl through TrueView. We work with them, and they brought this today. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dot, who will set up Amy just a little bit more, and I'm going to get out of the way. And this week, you don't have to listen to me that much. So with that, I'll turn it over to Dot. The floor is yours.
Awesome. Thanks, Dave. So over the past few weeks, we've been working hard to bring you resources, tools, support, and trying to do our best to pull them together all in one spot. We sincerely hope you found it helpful. Really wanting to make sure that all of us from TrueView have provided support and really want to share a message on behalf of all of us to really hang in there. It's tough. Stay hopeful and be well. I'd like to turn it over to Amy so we can really get to the meat of this and give you guidance for your business. Thanks.
All right, thanks guys. We're going to jump right in. We're going to be talking today about financially protecting your business during this pandemic. So let me share my screen with you, and looks like I need Dave to unshare his screen. All right, there we go. So let's just jump right in. This first disclaimer, I just have to say, basically to summarize it, it means I am an accountant, but I'm not your accountant. So take this information, apply it to yourself. I can't give you guys all individual tax advice, but this is just kind of in general some things that will be helpful for you. So we're going to be covering some tax due dates, loans available for you as small business owners, some suggestions as to how to navigate unemployment now that it's open to self-employed folks, protecting your cash, and then cash flow planning. Some things about the tax due date. So today is April 15th, whether you realized it or not. Traditionally, the tax deadline for the federal income taxes. So that was extended to July 15th. So if you have already filed your return but you owed taxes, your payments don't need to be made until July 15th either, and there won't be any additional tax or late payment penalties for 2019 income tax returns. Same thing with Q1 and Q2 quarterly estimated income taxes. So this is different than your state sales taxes. A lot of states have their own deadlines for those. They're adjusting them. So you'll want to check in with them on the sales tax. But for federal quarterly income taxes, Q1 and Q2 are both due now, July 15th. Just a little note here, quarterly taxes are not completely required. If you owe more than $1,000 when it comes to tax time, they will assess underpayment penalties and interest, but it's not going to be a life-changing amount. So if you need to hold on to your cash, even at July 15th and can't make those first two quarterly payments, you can pay your entire year's tax due either in later quarters or when you file your 2020 return. So just know that they've got some flexibility with those. And then check with your state. So a lot of the states are doing a pretty good job of trying to adjust their due dates to match the federal deadlines, but not all of them are. So you really want to check with your state to see if they have extended their filing due date and their payment due date. And I made a little tiny link down here for you guys if you want to write it down. Maybe Danielle can post that in the chat for you. But the AICPA put together a summary of all the states and their due dates. So that's a great resource just to have bookmarked somewhere. And you can easily find your state's information. If for some reason you're having, you aren't sure, aren't understanding what's been posted there, you can Google your state. A lot of times they're having like the COVID-19 FAQ section posted just like as a banner at the top. So that is a good place to look as well. As far as the loans available, so you guys have probably heard of the Sba loans that the CARES Act passed some measures for. So the first one is the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, which is the EID loan, and then the other one is the Paycheck Protection Program loan. So we'll talk a little bit more about those, how they work, that sort of thing. I also had a client tell me that they were going to use a 12-month interest-free credit card to kind of bridge the gap while they were waiting for loans to get approved and that sort of thing. So we'll talk about the strategy around that, and then some microloans that are available. So this might be small. I also have it, if you want to see it up close or want to just take some time to look at this, I have posted it on my Instagram. So if you guys use that at all, my Instagram handle is down at the bottom. But this shows the differences between that Economic Injury Disaster Loan and the Paycheck Protection Program. And one thing I want to throw out there now is this stuff is changing. Honestly, it's changing. It feels like by the day. So a lot of people who applied for that the EID loan, they got an email this week saying that they're originally they said basically it sounded like everyone could get a free $10,000 and you would get it within 3 days, which sounded really awesome and too good to be true. And it turns out that it was. They are now have changed it so that you can qualify for up to $1,000 per employee. I'm unsure, it's unclear now if they count sole proprietors as an employee of the business for purposes of this. But right now they're saying up to $1,000 per employee, up to a maximum of $10,000 for this grant. So you would apply for this directly on the SBA website, and we're going to walk through that application really quickly because my stance on this is it can't hurt at this point. It can't hurt to go ahead and apply for these. If you get something, awesome. If you don't, have a backup plan. So that's what we're going to talk about with the other credit card and microloans. So with the economic injury disaster loan, you're applying directly with the SBA right on their website. With the PPP loan, you will need to apply directly through a bank. For most people, it is the bank that you have your business checking account with. But let's say you're a sole proprietor, you don't have a business, like a formal business checking account set up. Your bank may not accept an application for this type of loan from you. So there are other places out there offering it. One of them that I heard is actually doing a really good job is PayPal. They're offering this loan. Fundera, Fundera.com is another place to check out. They will match you with a lender. So check those places out if you want to apply for this. You can get up to $10 million. But really what you're going to be applying for is you're going to be figuring out what your payroll, your average payroll amount is, and we'll talk about how to do that. And then you're going to multiply that by 2.5. And that's what you can get forgiven. And then if you don't get it forgiven, then the rate of the PPP loan is 1%, which is really good. Even if you weren't able to get this forgiven, it's a fantastic business loan rate. And it can just be there to kind of help you bridge the gap until things get moving again. Down here under Can I Apply Now? So the EID loan, you can go on right now and apply. Since we're past April 3rd and April 10th, which were the two openings for this PPP application, everybody can apply there as well. What you can't do is apply for, you can't basically double dip. So if you get that EID loan, then you have to subtract that from the amount that you receive from that PPP loan. That's one of those things I wouldn't worry about it until you get approved, because not many people are getting approved yet, just because the SBA is so overwhelmed with applications to be processed. So it doesn't mean that they're not going to be processing them. It's just taking a while because they have so many to get through. So on that EID loan, here's what the website looks like. I went through the process, and I have, I'll be sharing you screenshots just if you want to make some notes. If you haven't applied already, here's some things I've seen a lot of questions about as my clients are applying. So the first one is on the very first page, and they're asking for you to choose your entity. So the first option is applicant is a business with not more than 500 employees. The second one is applicant is an individual who operates under sole proprietorship with or without employees, or is an independent contractor. So they don't have much guidance as to which, the fine details of what you should select. If you don't have employees and you are a sole proprietor, which means you are not a corporation, you're not an S corporation, you're not an LLC, then I would select the second one. If you are a corporation, an S corporation, or an LLC with employees, then I would select the first option. Then scrolling down.
Amy?
Yeah.
I do have a couple of questions here for you.
Okay.
First, I'm going to unmute Joseph Lipnier if you wanted to ask your question.
All right, hang on. Okay, you with me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Amy, the mandatory 2-week, 80-hour qualified paid sick leave act, the one that's an extension of the Families First Coronavirus Response Act.
Yes.
Okay. Tell us a little bit more about that and how we're supposed to execute that. My understanding is Q1, you just file normally. This is all Q2. And then what happens with that and PPP if I end up getting that?
Yeah, so if you get, so he's talking about a basically a payroll credit that you can get, and it's all should be handled through your payroll provider. So the one I use is Gusto. They've been great about walking you through everything. You want to make sure that you select there should be something in your payroll provider that you can tell it that you want to apply with this payroll credit. There's a form that will get sent in, form 7200, and that's going to be how you receive any payroll credits pertaining to that paid sick leave. So basically you stop paying in payroll taxes now, and that's kind of your way of immediately getting that money in as a credit. And then you, if you're owed more than that amount that you held on to, by filing that form 7200, that's how you are going to get the additional funds refunded to you.
And how does that coordinate with PPP?
Thank you. So you essentially can't do both. So if you are reporting wages and getting a credit for it, then you can't use the PPP loan for those same wages. So you could use it for things like mortgage, utilities, rent. It can be forgiven there. So it affects your forgiveness. If you get too much PPP loan and you are going to use it for this credit, you can repay it back. There's no early repayment penalty. Or if you just need it for regular operating expenses, you can use it for that. It just means it won't be forgiven.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. I do have one more question from Deborah. All right, Deborah, you should be unmuted now.
Hi, can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, hi, Amy. My question is, if you get the up to the $10,000 grant, is that separate from the rest of the EIDL loan that has to basically get subtracted from your PPP if you then get that? Or does that grant amount come off of your PPP as well?
It's my understanding that only that 10,000 comes off of the PPP loan.
So anything else from the EIDL doesn't have any effect on the PPP?
Correct, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
That's my understanding.
Thanks.
All right.
Okay.
So coming back to this is, as a reminder, this is the EID loan application. You're just going to go through here, basically telling them that you agree to all of these terms. You're going to give them some of your basic business information. But one thing I want to point out here, gross revenue for the 12 months prior to the date of the disaster. So this is not your 2019 gross revenue. It is from February 2019 through January 2020. Same thing with cost of goods sold. So cost of goods sold, anything that you have purchased and have actually resold, not just inventory purchases, but anything that you've actually sold over that 12-month period, starting with February 2019, you'll list here for the total of cost of goods sold. Then for probably 99% or 100% of you guys, rental properties, nonprofits, faith-based entities, these questions that aren't marked with a red, they do not need to be answered because they don't apply to you. You'll put the business address in, just some basic business information, detailed business activity. These 2 questions down here, these, just find whatever you can find that's closest. You're not going to find in there, like, it's not going to list framers or anything like that. So find something that is as close as possible, but whatever you select there is not going to make or break your application. Then you're going to move on and add any business owners. So just put in the basic information and the ownership percentage. You will need to know their social security number, birth date, and place of birth. So those are some unique things. If you have partners in a partnership or shareholders in an S corporation, you'll need to get that information from them. Then they've got some additional questions for you about, if you're allowed to take grants and have your criminal history. And then one thing you have to make sure you select is this box right here. I would like to be considered for an advance up to $10,000, and you give them the banking information. You will finish it up, and then they do not email you once you've submitted it. So don't look for an email confirmation. You will want to print. I would print a PDF of this summary. I blocked out the number here, but it will show you an application number. Just keep that for your records. You probably won't ever need to use it, but keep this in your records. And then, like I said, they did reach out this week with an email to everyone that had applied. If you're just applying now, you know that you don't get the money within 3 days. It's from 3 days after your loan application has been approved. So at that point, then you could expect to see the funds in your bank account within 3 days. So onto the PPP loan, we talked about it a little bit. This process is different for every bank because you're not applying directly with the SBA, you're applying with different banks. And these banks basically overnight, probably to them, felt like they had to create a whole new system for this loan process, and a loan process that had rules changing constantly. So give your bank a little grace when you're dealing with them because it's tough. But I have heard that a lot of the smaller credit unions and more local banks are able to get these processed a little bit faster, so you have access to that type of bank. Also, I heard recently that PayPal was really a smooth process, and then that Fundera, Fundera.com, that's another place that I've had several clients apply through. So when you apply, they're going to ask you questions about, very similar to that EID loan, about ownership information, business information. But then they're also, the key thing they're going to ask you is, what is your average payroll? And so there's a lot of different rules. This is here where I really lean on the payroll providers for this, if you actually have employees. So like if you're Gusto, ADP, those places have created a report that you can just generate with the click of a button, and it creates this report based on the guidelines that the Treasury Department has issued. And then it should also include information about how they arrived at those numbers. So that, like when I did mine, there was a third page to it, and it showed how the calculations worked. And the banks want to see this. They don't just want a number thrown at them and then have to, dig through and figure things out. They want you to provide how this number was arrived at. So for payroll, lean on your payroll providers, work with them to get that average payroll amount. And we'll talk about if you don't have payroll in just a second, but they also want copies of 940 forms, which are payroll forms, or 941 forms, which are quarterly forms that you use to report your payroll to the government or to the IRS. The payroll report showing how you calculated that average monthly payroll. So that's what I was mentioning. You want to reach out to your payroll provider to get. And then a copy of your 2019 tax return if you have filed it. If you haven't, then a lot of them are allowing you to just submit a profit and loss report for the prior year. And if you don't have one of those either, that's fine. You'll want to hustle and get your bookkeeping done for 2019. And the quickest way that I think you can do that, do not try to learn QuickBooks right now. Don't try to learn a new program. I would go to your bank, export all of your transactions, and put a column in there that you can go through and just give everything a quick category. And then if you Google profit and loss report template, then you can fill in your totals on that. Your bank may request something additional, but at least it gives you something initial to be able to hand into them. So if you don't have employees and you don't have a traditional payroll, what you can do is look at line 31 of your Schedule C. So the Schedule C is what you use to report your income and expenses if you are a sole proprietor or you're a single member LLC that's taxed like a sole proprietor. So you'll look at that number. It's basically the very bottom line on that Schedule C form after your home office deduction has been taken out, and you'll divide that by 12, and that's going to get you your average monthly payroll. Now, if you haven't filed your taxes for 2019 yet, you'll want to have your 2018 tax return ready. You'll submit that to them kind of just as proof that, yes, my business, it is a business, it has expenses, and then you'll also need to supply your profit and loss report for 2019. And some may also request a balance sheet. If they do request the balance sheet, then I would probably work with an accountant or bookkeeper to get that created. It's a little bit more involved than just looking up your balances of your bank accounts. And then the last thing, a lot of them are going to request 1099s. But here's the problem. If you're just selling to consumers, then you're probably not going to really have any 1099s. If you use a credit card processor, then you may receive a 1099-K form. So I would submit that instead of 1099 miscellaneous if you don't receive those from customers. So here's how the loan forgiveness works for the PPP loan. You need to spend 75% of those loan funds. So that's that initial 2.5 times your average payroll amount. That's considered your loan fund. 75% of that needs to be spent on payroll within 8 weeks of receiving the funds. So you can't hang on to it. You can't, count it towards wages already paid. It has to be used within that 8-week period. And it has to be spent, like if your workforce has decreased since the loan period or the calculation period that they looked at for last year. So like if you had an average of 3 employees last year and now you're down to 1, then you may have to repay some of those loan funds so that you don't get dinged on it. So just be careful that if you are using those loan funds for the payroll, you're using them for 100% of the workforce that you essentially started the year with. The rest of that, so the remaining 25%, can be spent on mortgage, rent, and utilities. Probably a lot of you don't have home offices, but if you do, you work out of the home. I have not seen guidance yet on whether that additional 25% can be spent on your home mortgage, home rent, and home utilities as part of like a home office deduction. So keep your ears peeled for, on the news, those types of places. I update my blog regularly as this stuff gets released. So those are good places to just keep an eye on for updates as they come through.
Amy, I do have a couple of questions here for you.
Okay.
First, I'm going to put on Chris J. Kenny to ask your question. Go ahead. Chris? Okay, maybe not. All right. Let's do do Kent Schaefer if you wanted to ask your question. Come on.
If you guys want to chat them to me too, if that helps, if you don't want to talk to everyone, you can do that.
Kent, are you there? Kent Stauffer. Okay. Well,
If you guys want to chime in with your questions, if you're having difficulties doing them right now, we'll still have some time at the end to go back to questions too.
okay. Yeah, let's go ahead and just get back. And if there are more questions, we'll type in then.
Perfect. So this 12-month interest-free credit card, I mentioned earlier, this was something that one of my clients had asked about doing, and it was really just so that they could kind of break some of their larger payments up. So in their situation, they had a large software expense that they paid annually, and they weren't sure that they were going to be able to break that up into like three monthly payments. So what they did is they got this interest-free credit card. It's interest-free for 12 months only. So once that 12 months is over, the interest piles on for anything you haven't paid off. But this allowed them, instead of having to pay $2,000 payment in March, they're now able to pay 500 of it over the next 4 months. So what I told them to do, if you do that, is especially just with this type of credit card, maybe make a spreadsheet. I know a lot of people hate spreadsheets, but I also think there's power in having a plan. So create a plan, like everything that you put on there, give yourself a deadline to have it paid back off. And that way you have a plan, you know how much to pay for, you know how much to plan for, so that you don't have a huge balance on this credit card once that 12 months is over. Another thing to look into are microloans. So these are really good for more of a short-term basis. And a lot of times these are easier for you to get your hands on than just a typical bank loan. So a couple places to check out, Kiva, Axion, USA. These are the two that are available to all states. There are a few other ones out there that are available in certain states, but I'm sure you can find microloans available if you search your state, and microloans, a good list will come up for you. So check into those. These are kind of like a bridge loan to get you to the other side and make the cash flow not such a stressful thing. If you aren't able to get any of those loans and you need to have money coming in, with the CARES Act, self-employed people are now able to apply for unemployment. And this has traditionally not been the case. So the federal pandemic unemployment compensation, that is the name of this, and it essentially allows you to receive $600 more per week on top of your state benefits for up to 39 weeks, which is 13 more weeks than you're typically allowed. So the problem that I'm running into right now is a lot of people are trying to apply, but the states and their systems are they're based on the traditional model of working for an employer, and then if you are let go, then applying for unemployment. It's not, their infrastructure is not set up in a way to work with self-employed people. So they are also scrambling to get something in place. And I keep seeing, it feels like every other day a state is opening up their system. Virginia just opened up theirs today for self-employed people. I think California's had theirs opened up for a little while. So check with your states to see if they have that available for self-employed people, and then you can apply. You can't get unemployment and also use these PPP or EID loans to pay yourself. So no double dipping here, but if you aren't able to get those loans, you can look into applying for unemployment. One thing I wanted to mention, I saw this on the news this morning. There is a new app, so if you want to check it out, I have not looked into it that much. I have not tried it myself, but I just wanted to share with you something that I heard about to help make the process a little bit easier, and it's called Do Not Pay, and it's all combined into one word. So check that out. If you're having problems getting your application in with your state, look into that. It might work really well. Their whole goal is to try and simplify the process and help you get your application in as easy as possible. Okay, so the next thing that I want to just drill in real quick to you guys is we're in a season of protecting our cash. We're obviously not in seasons of having our best year ever and beating sales goals. We just want to make sure that if at all possible, we can have enough money coming in that it equals or slightly exceeds our expenses. So review your expenses, recurring expenses, even on a personal side. If you need to cut back Hulu or Netflix, those might seem like crucial things right now, but look at the recurring expenses first, see what you can cut back so that you're only having what is necessary to keep the lights on. If incoming sales don't cover that bare minimum, then I have been really inspired by seeing businesses get really creative. A lot of restaurants are selling groceries, and I've seen artists create subscription boxes that people can purchase, busy boxes to keep kids busy, educational tools. A lot of people are selling gift cards to get the cash flow in. So think out of the box a little bit. You might not be able to continue as business as normal now, but it might be something that pushes you to create another income stream for your business. So now I'm going to jump into this cash flow tool really quickly. It's something that I use with my clients, and I think I've had several of them tell me that it just gives them a peace of mind to see all their numbers laid out and create a plan. So if you guys want to write this down, it's also shared in the chat box. It needs to be, all of these caps need to be in there as written for the link to work. But when you click on it, it's going to ask you to make a copy, and that allows you to save your own copy that you can edit. So then it will look like this cash flow template in Google Sheets. And the numbers in here, they're just sample numbers. I left them in the template, but all you need to do, just highlight them and delete them. Same with the income and this. But I wanted to have something in here for you guys to be able to see how we did it. So in this example, when I work with clients on this, I adjust actual to projected. So projected means I made up the numbers based on historical information or what I know is coming down the pipeline. Actual is what has actually happened. So fill in these numbers. January, February, March, you can fill in your actual numbers for income and expenses. And then for April through the end of the year, I know it feels like it's probably impossible to estimate income. So you can even create several copies of this and do like a best case and worst case if you want to. And you can have a lot of different scenarios, which I like to play around with. So put in some best case and worst case scenarios in here and play around with the numbers. We're gonna, just for purposes of this, I'm just gonna fill these in really quickly. So you'll see down here, based on this example, for this business, their net income is going to be about $7,800. So then what you would do once you fill this all out is you go back through these expenses and see, okay, what am I spending on advertising? And is there anything I can cut back on? Probably not doing a whole lot of driving these days, so we'll just take out those car and truck expenses. subscriptions are a great place to look for recurring expenses that you might not need right now. Or a lot of places are letting you either defer or they're giving you a couple free months of subscription. So Adobe is the one off the top of my head that I know of. If you contact them, if you already have an Adobe subscription, you can get that. You can get basically 2 months free from them. So look through all of your expenses, see what you can get deferred or possibly like a free month of, and whittle that down. And then you're just going to add those numbers in for the rest of the year. So you can kind of just see how that number evolves, this total number for the year end. And then what I want you to do is figure out how much you need to make to live each month. So if you probably need more than $380 to live in April if you don't have much of this emergency savings. So then you're going to have to figure out either you cut expenses or you need to figure out a way to infuse your business with cash. You know, it's easy for me to tell you to do that. I know in reality, it's a lot more difficult. So expenses might be the way to go right now in terms of saving and protecting your cash. Then down here, what I want you to do, and I'm going to highlight this one for you so you remember, I want you to put in your beginning bank balance. So this is as of January 1st, 2020. How much money did you have in your bank? If you have a savings account for the business, that sort of thing, add up all of those business bank accounts and put the total there. Then the way this spreadsheet will work is it will automatically pull in how much money you have coming in. So that's income. And then let's say you need to contribute, you need to put some money into the business. You can type that in here. So if you need to put in $1,000 to pay the mortgage from your personal savings, you'll put that in here. If you receive a loan, whether it's one of those SBA loans, it's a PayPal loan, something like that. If you receive money, a loan into the business, then you can type that into the month that you receive it as well. So you'll see down here for this ending balance, that increases when you add that cash in. Contractors, those are factored in there, and then operating expenses. If your expenses probably won't fit nice and neatly into this list. So you can always just right click and insert a row, and then just make sure that you drag down the formula over here. Basically, you just want it to add up in the total if you add in a line. So anyways, back down to here, opening cash flow, money coming in, here's your money going out, and then ending balance. In a normal situation, when we're not in a pandemic, I would say your goal is to have 3 to 6 months of cash saved up for an emergency situation. But we are in that emergency situation. So saving cash for, you know, trying to put it into a retirement, trying to build up your savings, that might not be possible right now, and that's okay. So your goal is to just stay cash flow positive, meaning the money coming in is going to be greater than money going out. If it's negative for a few months, as long as you have enough cash in the bank to cover a few months of being negative, like in this example, they get down to 0 months of cash on hand, but then it builds back up to 1 to 2 later. So play around with these numbers. I know the spreadsheet might feel overwhelming. If you guys have any questions when you dig into it, let me know. But I just think it's nice to have a plan for the year. Worst case, best case, just to be able to lay it all out there so that you're not feeling overwhelmed with all the possibilities that could happen in terms of your business finances. So that's all I have for you guys today. I made this little slide for you. But if you guys have any questions, you know, we've got about 10 more minutes left, so I'd love to answer those for you.
Okay, great. So I'm going to try and put Kent back on again and see if he can ask his question. Kent, you should be unmuted now. Kent Stoffer. Hello. All right. I'm going to switch over to John Gaston Art from Gaston Art and Frame. You are unmuted now.
Right. Hello, everybody. Thank you for all for doing this. I have a couple of questions on the about the PPP loan. I've been fortunate enough to receive word that I have been approved for the loan and should have my funding very shortly. My question has to do with my employees and their current situation. There are 8 of them altogether, and they are all currently on unemployment and collecting unemployment now for about 3 weeks. And my understanding is once I receive this funding, the plan really is to get them off of the unemployment rolls and get them back onto my payroll and use that money from the government to pay them. So, and I know there's sort of this, from what I understand and what you explained earlier, there's this sort of 8-week window in which we have to spend that money in order to have it forgiven. So I guess 2 parts on that question. One is, what if I don't spend it all? Because I don't know that I can, because I can't actually have them come back to work. I can pay them to stay home, which I believe is what I'm going to have to do to even come close to spending the money.
Right.
And then are the rules such that I have to bring all of my employees back, or can I bring back a percentage of them? So those are sort of my 2 questions in a convoluted way.
Okay. So to answer the first one, what if you don't pay all of the money out? First, what I would recommend is when you receive that money, if at all possible, I would recommend opening a separate bank account for those funds to get deposited. They'll probably get deposited into your main checking, but then transfer that full amount into the new checking account so that you have a very, very clear and easy way to show proof of how you spent that money. If you are not able to bring all of your employees back, let's say they make more on unemployment than they would by coming back on payroll, which is possible considering the IRS or the federal government adding on that $600 a week. If that happens, then the amount that you are eligible to be forgiven, so essentially that free money that you get, that decreases. So if you don't get all of that paid out, you can either use it for mortgage, rent, or utilities for the business up to 25% of the loan value, or you can just pay it back. There's no early repayment penalty for paying it back. Or if you just need it to pay for their operating expenses, the PPP loan rate is 1%. So you will, I think you have 6 months before you have to start paying that loan back. But that gives you basically a very, very low interest loan if you need it for other things. And then, so I think that answered the first one. The second one, do you have to bring them all back? Was that your second question?
Yes. Yeah, essentially.
Yeah. So if you don't, then like I said, you only get a portion of it forgiven, and it's going to be basically prorated by the amount of employees that come back versus don't. And by come back, I mean are paid. The whole point of the PPP loan is essentially to take some of the burden off of our unemployment programs. So it's not saying you're forcing them to come back to work for 8 weeks, even if they have a stay-at-home order. It's mostly just saying, here's the money to continue paying them so they come off of unemployment for 8 weeks, and then they can go back on when it's all done.
Thank you. That was my follow-up question. If I get 8 weeks of paying them in, and I still can't have them come to work, I want to be able to put them back on unemployment.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Yep.
All right. And another question that we have here is from Chris, but he does not have a microphone, so I'm going to go ahead and ask it for him. He would like to know, he heard you say to apply both for EIDL and PPE, even though we should not double dip. So should they apply for both or one or the other?
So I recommend applying for both. And let's say you have 2 employees. With that EID loan, according to their email this week, you would get up to $2,000, which probably won't cover their payroll for 8 weeks. So then with the PPP loan, that kind of fills in the rest. If you, let's say you get approved for $10,000 through the PPP loan, and you receive $2,000 from the EID loan, you will only want to take $8,000 of the PPP loan. So you subtract out what you got in terms of the advanced EID loan when you figure your total amount of PPP loan. And you can apply for them both now. When you apply for the PPP loan, it's going to ask you how much of the EID loan you've already received. Chances are you probably haven't received anything yet. So put 0 there because you don't know if you're going to get it or not. And you can adjust that down the road before everything gets finalized.
Okay, great, thanks. And then another question here from Mo. He had a couple questions. So Mo, you're on.
Hi, Amy. Thank you for doing this. I appreciate it. Can you hear me? Am I on?
Yes.
Yes, Mo, we can hear you. Thank you.
Perfect. Okay, so the first question is, we applied for the 2 loans you talked about a couple of weeks ago, and I haven't gotten a response back. And I'm seeing some people who are getting the responses who applied later. Is there a chance banks would run out of money?
There is a chance, and I don't know all the inner workings of how they are given money to loan out. From what I have understood, if they do run out, they're typically telling people, they're telling loan applicants, you know, we're no longer accepting loan applications at this time. That's kind of your cue to go apply somewhere else. What they don't want you to do is apply to 10 different places all at once and see who bites first. If overall, if all the loan money gets used up, from what I've heard, a lot of the, there's basically bipartisan support for funding additional funds towards these loan programs.
Okay, so that was my follow-up question is, should I apply with a second bank if the first bank isn't responsive?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know the repercussions if you have 2 outstanding loan applications out. I do know that in the process, they typically ask you if you have applied already for it. Mm-hmm. So you would, if you say yes, then it might, you know, kick you out of going any further.
Okay. I also have another question if you have time.
Mm-hmm.
So we didn't apply for unemployment for me and my employees. We were thinking the PPP and the 10,000 going to come in sooner because they said it'd be 3 days. And now I'm finding out that it might take longer for the money to come in. Should I apply now for unemployment and then the PPP hits, we get out of it and spend the money? Because right now my employees don't get any money.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's nothing stopping you and your employees from applying now, as long as your state has that system open. If they don't have it open yet, what I've heard is that most states are not saying you are going to qualify for funds based on when we get your application from unemployment. It's when you first started qualifying. So if you laid off your employees or furloughed them 2 weeks ago, but they can't get a loan or an unemployment application into the state until the end of next week, they're going to make that retroactive to when they first actually qualified. So they aren't losing out on anything. But yeah, you don't know if you're going to get that money from those loans. So you may as well get that unemployment process started. And then you can come off of it. And then it's my understanding you can go back on it once that period's over.
Okay. The last question is, I don't know if you would have an answer for this. Our shop is in New York City, and some of the employees live in New Jersey. They're having conflicting questions, answers. They should they apply in New York, or should they apply in New Jersey and have New Jersey collect from New York? Nobody picks up phone calls, and everybody's online. It's anybody's opinion. There is an authoritative answer to this question.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't have a good answer for you on that. My thought would be that it would be wherever you are paying unemployment into them locally. So if they're working in New York and you're paying New York unemployment, essentially on their behalf as an employer payroll expense, they would need to apply with New York. That's just my thought process behind the answer.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, great. So I think that that's all the time that we have. I just want to thank you very much, Amy, for taking the time to give this presentation and answer questions. I'm going to go ahead and turn it back over to Dave, but yes, thank you again, Amy, for everything.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. All right. And Dave, you should be good.
All right, Amy, thank you very much. That was amazing. Thank you to TrueView for bringing Amy to us. And again, an hour worth of a CPA's time is like $800. So we did really well there. So thank you. Next week, we're going to have Lifesaver join us, and they're going to talk to us about point of sale systems and retail pricing and talk about some of their new features. So if you're a Lifesaver customer, it's a good chance to get support from Paul and company. And if you don't have a POS system, and as you move toward reopening, it might be a good time to implement one while things are ramping up. So Lifesaver will join us next week. And then we'll also do a preview of Framing Studio, which is a visualization tool we've had on our website for years, and it's had usage, and we're seeing a resurgence and people want to know more about it. So we will have a presentation on that as well. So next week will be a two-parter, and we look forward to seeing you Wednesday at 2 o'clock. If you haven't chatted Danielle, your email address, please do that so we can follow up with you. And again, any questions you have, either the URL or ljmarketing@larsonjuhl.com. We'll let you go. It's 3:01. Thank you, everybody. Enjoyed it, and we'll see you next week. Take care.